Well, good afternoon. Over the past few weeks, we've all been through a lot. In the face of truly unprecedented challenges, in the face of our darkest days, we've pulled together. We've been patient. We've learned to cope with the new reality. We've looked out for each other by staying home and physical distancing. For that, I want to thank you. I want to thank each and every person who's worked with us to get us through this crisis. We still have a ways to go, but because of you, because of our collective efforts, we're making progress. We're reopening more and more of our province as it becomes safe to do so. Yesterday, our garden centers and our nurseries were able to open their doors to customers just in time for Mother's Day. Today, our hardware stores and safety supply stores will also be able to open their doors. On Monday, retail stores with a street entrance will be able to provide curbside pickup and delivery. We're carefully and cautiously getting people back to work. Safety will always guide every decision we make. You put your trust in us, and we're putting our trust in you, because we're all in this together. So with Victoria Day around the corner, we have more good news to share today. As of Monday, May the 11th, we will begin opening our provincial parks and conservation reserves for day use. These places will be open for walking, hiking, bird watching, and biking. People will be able to once again enjoy the outdoors in one of our many beautiful parks and conservation reserves our province has to offer. But please take note that access will be limited for now. Camping, playgrounds, and beaches will continue to be closed. Public health measures must be followed at all times, including practicing physical distancing, avoiding social gatherings, and staying home if you're sick. We're trusting people to be responsible and take this seriously so they can enjoy themselves while staying safe and healthy. Before I pass things over to Minister Yurek, I want to take a moment to wish all of our amazing mothers out there a very happy Mother's Day. Now, in these dark days, more than ever, the moms out there, all of the wonderful, caring mothers, you are our rocks. Every day, without fail, you're there, putting everyone else before yourself, giving comfort, support, and love to all of us during a time when we need it most. And I know that the quarantine, I know that this period has been especially challenging for you. Every day, you put on a brave face. You get up every morning and you put your families and loved ones first. And for everything you do, thank you. So please, everyone, I have one request. Let's make tomorrow the most special, the most incredible Mother's Day we can. Thank you, and God bless all the amazing moms, and God bless the people of Ontario. Now I'll invite Minister Yurek up.
Thank you very much, Premier. I also want to thank Ontarians who are stepping up and doing their part to help slow the spread of COVID-19. Because of these efforts, we are now able to take steps to reopen Ontario's parks. With the warm weather just around the corner, I know that many Ontarians are looking forward to spending more time outdoors after being cooped up inside for so many weeks. This Monday, May 11th, over 500 Ontario parks and conservation reserves will open. And the remaining 115 parks will be open on Friday, May 15th. I want to remind everyone, you will be able to walk, hike, and bike. But for now, there will be no access to beaches, facilities, camping, or group activities. But I want to be clear, visitors to the park must continue with physical distancing. We also ask that you stay local. Ontarians should still be reducing the amount of unnecessary travel to other areas of the province. So if you're planning to visit a provincial park, please only visit the one that is closest to your community. While staff are working as hard as they can to get provincial parks ready to open, they will not have washrooms or drinkable water right away. It's important that you come to the park prepared with hand sanitizer, extra water, and other supplies, just in case. Before planning your day trip to one of our parks, please visit ontarioparks.com for details about what's available. Over the next several weeks, Ontario Park staff will be conducting critical maintenance and other park startup procedures so that more recreational activities and facilities will be available when it is safe to do so. In the meantime, I encourage everyone to enjoy all the beauty Ontario has to offer, safely and responsibly. Thank you.
Well, Ivana, before I start, I just want to thank the folks for giving me this great T-shirt, and this says everything about thanking our incredible frontline healthcare workers and other frontline essential service workers that have helped us get through this. And because of their great work, we were able to get more testing done. And I want to personally thank our health teams across the province for doing an incredible job. We hit a new target, a new record actually. It was over 19,000 tests. I think it was 19,200. So we were close to 20,000 tests. And I just want to sincerely thank everyone for really stepping it up and getting these tests done. They're just an amazing, amazing group. So thank you for that. We'll take questions.
Okay, we'll go to the phone line now. Just a reminder, one question, one follow-up. First question.
Your first question comes from Jessica Smith with Queen's Park Briefing. Please go ahead.
Hi, Jessica.
Hi, thanks so much, Premier.
Thank you.
The public wasn't told about a COVID-19 outbreak at Maple Lodge Farms meatpacking plant in Brampton for a couple of weeks. And the folks at Peel Public Health told me they don't see the need to inform the public about that outbreak or those outbreaks immediately. Do you think the public should be informed quickly when a workplace outbreak occurs?
I think we should be, especially any food plants. You know, it's unfortunate, and Maple Lodge Farms is a great, great company. But I think every food company has a responsibility to tell the people.
Follow-up.
And to follow up on that, Peel Public Health also told me it isn't their job to inform the public about workplace outbreaks. Instead, they let the company tell their story from their private business perspective. Do you think it should be the companies or the public health units who are informing people when this happens?
Well, I think it should be transparent. I think public health and the company should just come forward. And it's going to be out there. If they have hundreds of employees, it's going to be out there. So get ahead of it and be transparent and tell them what you're going to do to correct the problem. These are reputable companies, and we have some great, great companies. That'd be my advice.
Next question.
Your next question comes from Randy Rath with CHCH-TV. Please go ahead.
Hi, Randy.
Hi, Premier. My question is actually for Minister Elliott.
Yep.
Minister, I want to ask you about the pharmacies only dispensing a month's worth of prescription drugs at a time, and the added expense that has put on seniors and some of our most vulnerable. I asked you about this a couple of times, and you told me that there would be good news coming for these people. Do you have any news for them?
We are working on a solution because I know this has been a problem for many, particularly seniors, where they're taking more than one medication. This adds up to a significant extra financial burden each month. So we expect very shortly to have a solution to assist them, knowing that they do have this burden. And also, we are being told that the issues with respect to shortages of some of the drugs, we expect will be not as much of a problem by the end of June. So we are looking for a solution to help seniors with those extra payments until we get to that point, at which point we will then be able to start resuming the 3-month prescription refills. So we will have an answer very shortly for people.
Well, as a follow-up, will you be retroactively helping people out financially that have paid extra fees?
We're looking at every solution right now. We're looking at what we are able to do by virtue of existing legislation and what we can put in place, but we want to make this as helpful as we can be to those seniors who have been put to those extra expenses these past several months.
Next question.
Your next question comes from Carrie Verma with CBC National News. Please go ahead.
Hi there, Premier.
Hi.
Traveling around Toronto, you see wild variations in kind of what measures businesses are putting in place for frontline workers. Some have face masks, others have face shields, some have plexiglass barriers, and we're continuing to hear from workers and businesses who are concerned about the lack of personal protective equipment. So why are we continuing to reopen the economy when there is such difficulty getting masks and face shields? And will labor inspectors actually be physically going into stores to ensure safety?
Well, yes, the labor inspectors will be doing their job and inspecting the stores, and especially the big box stores. You know, they probably have more contacts overseas on buying masks than we do. But in saying that, it goes back to what I said before. This is a worldwide crisis everywhere in the world. And I was on the phone with Malaysia this week. I was on the phone over in Asia and in China with the Consul General, and likewise with Malaysia. I'm searching everywhere in the world. But we will never, ever be put in this position again. We have a couple, good news is we have a couple large companies, very, very large worldwide companies wanting to open up facilities in Ontario after hearing our message. And I encourage any of these large companies, when this is over, get ramped up, because I don't want to be relying on other areas of the world for us. We have the ingenuity and the engineering might and the manufacturing might, and we're really come a long way. One of the areas that we feel that we saw a little bit of shortage, now we're ramping up again, is the gowns. So we have a lot of companies making gowns and the washable ones, so they can be reused, you know, up to 75 times. But things are going to be different moving forward, and we're going to continue ramping up. So we have the large companies, plus we have some great entrepreneurs that are going to be buying equipment. You know, the N95 equipment that make masks are coming over. They're going to bring over equipment for surgical masks. But again, it's constant. I'm on this every single day. I'm hunting for more PPE.
Follow up.
And Premier, you segued excellently to my follow-up. The federal government suspended shipments of 8 million N95 masks made in China that failed to meet specifications. Yep. How big of a loss is that for Ontario, and should Canada not be relying on foreign outsourcing for such critical equipment? Mm-hmm. Do you know how many of those masks were actually destined for the province? Maybe this might be a better question also for the Minister of Health. Well,
it's 40% of anything that comes in from the federal government. It's proportion based on your population. So we were expecting 40%, but I understand planes are coming in on a daily basis now. But this goes back to my point again, and I mentioned the Prime Minister, I've mentioned to the Premiers, every single call we're on, as a country, we should never, ever be put in this position again. And as these small companies ramp up, and the large companies, and we slowly start getting through this, we can't jump ship on these companies. If it costs us a couple extra pennies to have security and good security for our people, pay the extra couple cents to keep these manufacturing companies open, and especially the large ones that are going to be putting tens of millions of dollars of investment right here in Ontario. We have the volume across the country. We're a massive province alone, the volume that we go through. So they can justify opening a facility here. But we're really going to push this, that once we get ramped up, we're going to start supporting these companies, no matter if it's face shields, gloves, N95, surgical masks. I feel like I'm an expert on this PPE now, looking into the materials and everything possible we're doing to make sure that we have our own supply.
Next question.
Your next question comes from Omar Musleh with the Toronto Star. Please go ahead.
Hi, Omar.
Hi, Premier.
How are you?
Thanks for taking my question.
Thank you.
wanted to get your reaction to a story that was on the front page of the Star today that found that there were vastly different outcomes in for-profit nursing homes compared to non-profit and municipally run facilities, finding that residents were twice as likely to get infected and to die in for-profit nursing homes compared to non-profit. And then the numbers get even higher when you compare the residents' outcomes, 4 times more likely to die in for-profit homes when compared to the municipally run homes. So I wanted to get your reaction. Does this concern you? And would the province consider looking into this, launching an investigation to find out why there's that disparity between the nonprofit and for-profit and municipally run homes?
Well, good question, Omar. And I'll tell you, everything's going to be reviewed after we get through this. Right now, we're putting out the fires, and I think it's over 160 homes been infected out of 626 homes in total. And we have to look at the ones, the 626 in total, and the ones that haven't been infected, because the majority of them haven't been infected, and find out what they're doing right and find out what the other ones did wrong. But we're going to do a complete review, top to bottom, and make sure this doesn't happen again. But it's happening again. It's happening all around the world. It just gets into these long-term care homes, and it goes through there like an Australian bushfire. It's terrible, and we're doing everything we can to protect the people there.
Follow up?
Yeah, I guess the follow-up would be, in terms of saying after we get through this, you know, many people don't know how long this pandemic is going to last.
Yeah.
Can you give me any clarity on what kind of timeline it would be like to look into this specific issue?
Well, Omar, I'll tell you what we're doing. We're constantly enhancing measures there. We're constantly making the system change since the beginning of this pandemic compared to when we started versus now. Every single day we're improving the system, but we have a long ways to go. And we know that we're going to make sure that we make the appropriate changes. We're going to be consulting with the industry stakeholders, a wide range of different people to make sure we have the best long-term care homes. But in saying all that, I need help from the federal government. It's going to be a massive undertaking, and we need their support. And I think there should be a federal program right across the country, because it wasn't just Ontario that got hit. Right across the country got hit, and especially Quebec.
Next question.
Your next question comes from Salman Faruqi with the Canadian Press. Please go ahead.
Hi, Premier Ford. Today we've already heard some concerns from child care providers about whether they'll be eligible for the funding that your government announced this morning. And I wanted to ask if your government is going to ensure that every child care facility that needs it will get adequate funding to stay afloat.
Well, yes, we're going to do everything we can. Everything's on the table. I had a good conversation this morning with the Minister of Education where we were talking about that specific area, the child care, and we're going to continue communicating again with the stakeholders and people that use child care. But we're going to make sure that we leave the door open.
Follow up?
Also, we saw some promising numbers today about COVID-19, including the lowest growth rate we've seen since March, and lower numbers in hospitals and intensive care. I guess, could you just talk about how that progress is going to affect the next steps in reopening, especially after we've already talked about provincial parks opening soon?
I'll hand this over to the Minister of Health. Thank you.
Well, these certainly are very encouraging signs that we saw today, and I know this is being followed by our public health team at the command table. I'm watching it daily as well. We need to make sure that we continue to have a lowering of numbers. As Dr. Williams has said, though, this isn't going to be a big step down. It's going to be a gradual lessening in the number of cases, and that's what we're seeing. Even with heightened test results, over 19,000 tests done yesterday. So it's something that we're going to continue to focus on. We need to see these numbers keep coming down as we gradually open more and more parts of our economy. And that's why with the announcement with respect to the provincial parks and conservation areas, that is allowing people to be out more, but it's still going to be really important to practice social distancing and all of the other measures that we've put in place to make sure those numbers come down and stay down for good.
Next question.
Your next question comes from Scott Lightfoot with CTV News. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Premier.
Hi,
this morning, your government announced that school support staff now have the option of going to help out places like hospitals and long-term care homes. If they're going to start going into these areas, which have and continue to be affected by COVID-19 over the next few weeks, should parents be seeing that as a sign that, in all likelihood, schools will not be reopening for the rest of the school year?
Well, I know next week we'll be announcing that. We just want to look at the numbers. Again, we had an in-depth conversation late last night with the Minister of Education and this morning, and he'll be making an announcement next week on that.
Follow up.
And a follow-up about your announcement today, I'm not sure whether you want to take it or Minister Yurek, but the parks and conservation areas that are going to be opened, will they be patrolled to ensure that people are following social distancing, group regulations, and also staying away from the places that are still closed? I mean, that's a lot of physical ground to cover. And if so, who's going to be doing the patrolling? Is this now a job for conservation officers, or will this be police or bylaw?
I'll pass that over to the Minister.
Thanks very much for that question, and we're pretty excited to get these parks open, and there'll be staff on hand to observe and to ensure that social distancing is being followed. But I just want to remind people that it is a wide range of area, and we believe in personal responsibility and the fact that these folks will be able to self-distance themselves and just make sure that when they do go out, and I reiterate, take your hand sanitizer, take some water and other supplies you may need. But please follow social distancing. But there will be folks out there, parks staff, to be monitoring and ensuring that people are following social distancing and making sure that garbage is picked up and there's safety available throughout our parks.
Next question.
Your next question comes from Morgan Campbell with Global News. Please go ahead.
Just further to Scott's question, the Minister, or the Medical Officer of Health, has expressed some major concern about people not respecting physical distancing. So did anyone speak to him about this decision to open these parks and get his blessings to do so?
Yeah, thanks very much. Every decision we are making is in consultation with the Chief Medical Officer of Health, and we've been having ongoing discussions with him. And he approved the plan that we put forward that was announced today to open up 500 parks this Monday and the additional 115 parks next Friday to ensure that people can hike, walk, or bike. But he did support us in keeping camping closed, the beaches closed, and our facilities closed at this point, and having no group activities. So again, reiterate to people, please practice physical distancing while you're out there, and bring along the supplies you may need, such as water, hand sanitizers, etc.
Follow up.
Thank you, Minister. This question's for the Minister of Health. Yeah. I'm hoping that you could provide a little more information about the testing process in long-term care homes. I'm hearing of one home in particular that they've went in and tested all staff members, but this testing started at the management level and worked its way down. There's concerns that the managers in that home received, who are not in close contact with, allegedly not in close contact with residents, their test results back prior to personal support workers. So I'm wondering how those tests are conducted, and is it in alphabetical order or numerical order, maybe from a health card? Can you provide some information on that?
There isn't any strict protocol on the way in which it's done and who is tested first in each long-term care home. We are just requiring that every resident and every staff member be tested. We're well on our way to having that completed in a very short time. We've seen with 19,000 tests conducted yesterday that this is proceeding quite quickly. So we haven't dictated a way in which it has to be done. Some of the testing is being done, as you know, by groups of paramedics who are going into long-term care homes. We also have other groups that are going in, public health officials and others. So all we want is to see that everyone has been tested to make sure that this very vulnerable population is going to be cared for, that any COVID is identified, and that if people are positive for COVID, that they are either hospitalized if that's what they need, or they're put into self-isolation within the homes.
Next question.
Your next question comes from Camille Veyrisen with French CBC Radio Canada. Please go ahead.
Hello, my question is for Prime Minister Ford. On Sunday, the
Toronto
Transit Committee.
Yeah. You called me Prime Minister, and I just said not yet. Thank you.
Sorry, yeah. So, it's for you, that's my question. On Sunday, the Toronto Transit Commission is making historic cuts to its service because of the pandemic. And there are some transit advocacy groups who have called on the provincial government to provide emergency funding to public transit to keep train buses running for Canadians and also for essential workers who rely on transit to get to work. Is it something your government is looking at doing, giving an emergency funding?
Well, as you know, we have two different systems. We have Metrolinx run by the province, then we have the TTC. I'm using Toronto, for example, and the other cities, they have their transit system. But we have everything on the table right now. We're going to support them any way we can. But when we open up the economy fully, people are going to be using transit. We want to make sure we have the safest transit system anywhere. So we'll be taking precautions and working with the Toronto Transit Commission along with other transit authorities across this province to make sure that happens.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
This will be the last question.
Your final question comes from James Murray with Net News Ledger. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Premier, and thank you for taking my question.
Good afternoon. Thank you.
Last Saturday we talked and gas prices dropped 5 cents a litre afterward.
Yeah.
They're back up again, so we still have work to do. Here in northwestern Ontario, we're faced with challenges. Geography, we're the size of France, and population, we're the size of the suburb of Toronto.
Yes.
So as the province starts to open up, one of the areas is elective surgery openings at the hospitals and how people are going to get there. A lot of those people use the inner city bus lines to travel to major centers. This includes our huge Indigenous population across the north.
Yes.
On Thursday night, I talked to Minister of Health federally, Patty Hajdu. She says there's money out there federally to support the inter-community bus companies, but it has to flow through the province. What can be done to support inner-city bus transportation in northwestern Ontario to maintain those services now and then post-pandemic?
Well, I'm not familiar with an exact program that's going to be supporting transit across the province, but I will mention it and ask you, the Prime Minister and Deputy Prime Minister, next time we're on the phone, if the federal minister is saying that, then show me the money, and then we'll deal with it from there. But it's absolutely critical. I have to mention, you have some great representatives in the north, like Greg Rickford. I'll tell you, you should see all the ministers from the north at our cabinet table. I'll tell you, they have a loud voice, no matter if it's Greg Rickford up in Kenora, or Ross Romano in the Sioux, or Vic Fideli in North Bay. They have a very loud voice about making sure they protect the people of the north, and they're doing a great job at that. But we'll make sure that we address those issues and take care of the Indigenous community, along with other large areas like Thunder Bay, for example.
Follow up?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to shift gears on you a little bit.
Yep.
Here in Thunder Bay and across northwestern Ontario, we're getting gangs of gun-toting thugs coming up from southern Ontario with their illegal drugs. The OPP are stopping some of these thugs and seizing drugs and money. So are the Thunder Bay police. But in Thunder Bay, people are dying at the hands of these criminals that are coming up from southern Ontario. They are shooting people, they're hurting people, they're hot-shotting people with lethal doses of fentanyl. What can be done to help the police up here in the north?
Well, I know the Solicitor General is in constant communication with all the chiefs across the province, along with the Commissioner of the OPP, putting a strategy together to tackle the guns and gangs. But it's just a one-step process. Once we tackle the guns and gangs, and as you say, the thugs, and I agree with that, and they try to intimidate the young kids out there, and it's my job and our job as a government to protect our kids, and I'm going to do everything we can to protect them and protect families from these thugs. Do you know what we need to do? We need to change the bail conditions. We need to make sure that when they get charged, they don't get a slap on the wrist and they're out in a short time. That's what frustrates the police more than anything. Once we catch these thugs, the federal government has to change the laws and start toughening up on the sentences. You know, some of the horrific crimes I've seen, and all of a sudden they're out in 6 months. And some cases they get bail and they're out the next day. And I sympathize for the police, but a good announcement's coming very shortly for the OPP. Over the next week, you'll hear a great announcement. And by the way, I want to thank our police. They're absolutely true champions out there every single day, protecting communities across this province, and they're absolutely heroes. Along with, I always get all the emergency folks together, along with our firefighters and our paramedics. First responders are amazing people. Thank you for all the work you do.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thank you, and have a great Mother's Day, everyone.